So thanks everybody for being here today. Thank Nino for being here today. It's such a pleasure to have you here talking with us and our students today. I mean, I've been following your path here in Bali the last couple of years and have seen the amount of beautiful work that you have been involved with and the work that you're doing now with Mantra and Meralpati Hijo that you're going to present to us. It's essential and so important. We all know that the waste management in Bali, it's a huge issue, and we need the whole village to take part of that. Everybody needs to do their part, and what you're doing is really, really amazing. I want to personally thank you for the project. And we're here today to listen to your story, what you're doing, and also understand later ways that we can engage and support and be that community that together works towards the necessary change that we need. So thank you for being here, and the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here and for listening. Thank you, Carol, for the kind introduction. So my name is Nino, and I grew up in Bali. I went to international school here back in the 90s, and we had open classrooms and not a lot of rules, and it was a really, really great time. I truly love this place, and I've made it my home. And something I've been really passionate about for about 10 years is waste management. So after I finished my studies in Germany, I came back to Bali and I did an internship at Temisi Recycling. That was 10 years ago. And ever since then, I've been hooked on the topic, and I love the complexity of it. And it's a very big problem to solve. And by now, we've grown to a sizable team, and we have a lot of people participating, and we're doing a lot of great work. And I want to share that with you today. So, Carol, you asked at the beginning how you guys can help and how you can participate. And I honestly think that if Green School can somehow get involved in the education part. So, yeah, I basically did an internship at Temisi Recycling. And Temisi is a composting plant, which also manages plastics and papers and sells them to recycling. And I was there 10 years ago. And since then, the facility unfortunately has not improved much. There's a lot of government complexity and a lot of stakeholders participating. And what we decided to do was to take the solution to the villages, and we reduced the complexity onto a scale that is more manageable. So you guys already understand managing a school isn't easy. Managing a village is even harder. But then if you scale up to a region, it gets even harder. And then on an island, it's even harder. And then if you look at it in a nation scale, it's almost impossible. So reducing complexity is really key when you're solving environmental problems, because it makes the entire process more tangible and results are quicker. You have opportunities to celebrate success, and you can slowly make progress and chip away at the bigger problem. This is the region of Gianyar that you see here outlined. And these are hotspots where the population density is the highest. Up here, this really wet red one is Ubud. And then we have the city of Gianyar down here. We have Tampak Siring in the bottom left. This is plastic that is leaching into the environment. And we estimate that from these hotspots, we're looking at a few tons, if not up to 8 tons a day, that is going into the ocean from the region of Gianyar. So plastic has been a big issue. It's been on the agenda. Everyone's talking about it. And what our solution is to build more waste management in the villages, more infrastructure. So over the past years, we've been building, in English, they're called MRFs, material recovery facilities. In Indonesian, they are called TPS, 3R. And the function of these facilities is that they create a group of people that are empowered and that take action. And the villages have executive authority. That means that they can enforce the rules of the government, and they are able to nominate people in the village that go from household to household and that demand change, that create rules. And we build these facilities in the village. We have multiple meetings. We sign agreements. We get the backing of the Desa Adat, which is like a religious council that also helps us enforce the rules. And we've created these narratives and stories that we share and that we tell. And we have people participate because of this. So up to now, we have 13 villages in Gianyar which are participating, and there's many of these facilities being built right now. And we've gotten the government to commit to $1.4 million to invest into more of these facilities over the coming years. We think it's not enough. We need more money for these facilities to make them better, to improve them. But it's a starting point. So up to now, with these facilities, we've managed 24,000 tons of organics and 2,000 tons of plastics and metals and papers, and we've avoided around about 19,500 tons of carbon. You can see here, the majority of facilities are based in Gianyar on the right side of this little Bali island, and we plan to build up to 20 in the region, and we want to tie them into a network so that they communicate with each other, so that there's really good ones that are doing really well, and the ones that are not doing so well can visit the ones that are doing better. They can help each other. They can exchange knowledge. There will be best in class. There will be, just examples, showcases, and real life solutions that people experience and participate in. And we're really getting past the theory and making it happen on the ground. So Gianyar, every day, 570 tons of waste are produced in this small region alone. There's about 560,000 people living there, maybe even 600,000. And when the tourists come back, there's going to be even more. But our group, our network of partners and facilities that we are building is managing 187 tons a day. This is an enormous amount of materials that are getting managed every day. We have done 187 tons a day is what we've recycled with our partnership. As you can see here, 52% of these 570 tons are still going into the landfill every day. And we estimate that 15.7% are not even getting collected. So we want to build, on the left side, we want to build more village facilities, right? The TPS 3R are showcases. They do collection. We can measure the population statistics of the villages. We can size the facilities according to that population of the village. We can help calculate the material flows. We can do legal agreements. We're in process of creating quality management and the operation standards. We're helping with accounting, as well as just organizing the overall logistics. Now, on the regional scale, we have the regulations and the legal framework from the government, where we also participate in meetings and we give feedback on how to make the regulations so that it makes sense and so that it actually can be applied in a way that our lessons are teaching us, and we don't make regulations and laws that are unnecessary. And now we want to connect these villages to a central plant, which is Temesi, and we want to develop an entire framework which shows how the villages are connected to the central facility. And as we collect more and more data, we're seeing where we need to improve, And we can also see the financial costs and how much it costs to manage a kilo, how much profit we're making. And all of this is coming together as a bigger picture. The one thing that we have a big issue with right now is Temesi. It's been continuously underfunded. The government has not supported it, and it is still managed in the way of an open dump. Unfortunately, we got hit by a storm, and our roof fell down this December. And we went to the government asking for money to help with the repairs. And so far, we have about $15,000 from them as a first commitment. And hopefully we get another $1 million by the end of the year. But again, the size of this plant and the scale of this infrastructure, which is serving over 600,000 people, actually deserves more than $10 million to become a good operation and to actually be able to handle the amount of waste of all these people. So we want to bring Temesi, which is the central plant, up to 85 tons a day within the next year. And when we achieve that, we want to scale up to 290 tons per day, because this is going to bring us closer to zero waste. Once we're around 290 tons per day at just Temesi alone, we will be scratching at a 50% recycling rate for the region of Gianyar. From there, we will then have the means and the idea and the solutions to get to 60%, 70%, 80%. Eventually, a 90% recycling rate is physically possible, is achievable, but needs a lot of organization and a lot of work. So on a village level, we are building small material recovery facilities. They separate, they sort, they have a collection system in place. Households are told to separate the organics and the non-organics. And from these facilities, whatever is left goes to the dump. And what they can't process or what they want to sell, the central plant at Temesi can handle. Separation is the key. 70% is organics in Bali. Sometimes it's 60, but in Gianyar, we're seeing closer to 70%, especially in the villages. Those organics can turn into fertilizer. They can stay in the village. They don't even need to get trucked all the way down. And the plastics can get recycled. The paper can get recycled. The metal can get recycled. And B3 is hazardous waste. Those are things that's like in your AC or sanitary products that actually needs to go into an incinerator. And whatever is left is residue that goes into the dump. But enforcing separation on a village level really changes the game for everyone that is working in this field. Building mutual understanding. Every village has a socioeconomic structure. And within that structure, there are many different small institutions and groups. And one of the biggest challenges that we face as a team is to educate and more so get everyone to collaborate. So we create what we call narratives, and we create stories, and we then tie those stories and narratives into the socioeconomic structure of the village. And we do the hard work of talking with the individual groups and convincing them that the system that we are proposing is best. We've been doing this for years, and it's guys like Aga, you all know Aga, and Gina, and Dewi, and Rani. Our team on the ground is really convincing people how to make change, right? We even have someone that is a policy expert. His name is Mimit. He helps to draft the government regulations and does a lot of writing and letters, and we send circulation letters around. But this is really where a big part of the work is being done. And it's really showing results. This is the flow of materials. So the red are the non-organics, like the plastics, the metals, and the paper. And the green are the organics. So what we're trying to show here is that where do they go? Where do the organics go? Where do the non-organics go? Where does the residue go? And ideally, we keep the organics in a system in the village and directly feed them back to the farmers in the form of soil, of compost. We can make worms, we can produce protein, right? And the majority of the organics is actually water. So trucking it around the island and sending it to places is expensive. And it's just, quite frankly, it's just plain stupid. It's a waste of time, resources, and energy. And if the households themselves can make compost, even better. Okay, if they don't do that, then we have the village facility. And if the village facility goes over capacity, then it goes to Temesi. So we're building what we call intervention points. Each intervention point is reducing the waste coming to the landfill. The same goes for the non-organics. We can collect them in the villages. They can already directly sell them to the market. There's upcycling programs. And then what they can't handle goes to the central plant at Temesi. And from there, we can sell it to Java, to the recycling industry. Now, residue, which are sanitary products and those single-use diapers and all that, yucky stuff, that goes to the landfill, and that's what the landfill is meant for. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of intervention, and the trucks are just going and bringing everything to the landfill and have been for the past, 30, 40 years. And the landfills in Bali are over capacity. So how do we measure progress? In the villages, we are measuring and monitoring progress on a daily basis, and we have calibrated scales. So at the facilities, the plastics, the paper, the metals, the organics, everything gets weighed and it gets documented and sent to us. So we have an idea how much they are managing. At the same time, we also look at the finances and how much money they are spending. And then we can bring both together and we can basically look at the finances, divide it by the number of material we're managing, and we get an idea of effectiveness and how well those facilities are performing. And we can then compare them to other villages, and then we can give feedback and say, hey, we need to improve here, we need to do this better. But measuring really helps a lot when you are trying to improve a system. At the regional Temesi, we have set up a camera that is taking pictures of every truck that's coming in. And technology is kind of cool. And it's gotten so far that the camera can actually measure the length of the truck, measure the height of the truck, and do a multiplication itself with an algorithm and can tell us how many cubics. So it calculates the volume of the truck. And we're getting data on volume of trucks coming in, which then, you can play around with and start seeing other things. So as this all comes together, we are building and designing a regional scale system for the Kabupaten of Gianyar. And it's meant to be a showcase for Indonesia on how to properly manage waste, how to recycle, how to compost, how to reduce costs, how to reduce carbon emissions. And hopefully by 2025, we will be the best performing kabupaten in all of Indonesia. That's our goal. So we need to keep growing and scaling more showcase models. And that's really what we're working on. I'd love to hear some questions from you guys, and I'm going to stop talking right now. I hope this was a bit insightful for you. Yeah, let's just have a discussion. And I'm really happy to get some feedback from you guys.
That popped up. And the first question says, do you sell carbon credits of those carbons, of the carbon that's avoided? There was a slide where you had some bigger circles and a little circle down, and it said avoided carbon. Do you
Yes.
have any connection to the carbon credit market?
We do. At Timisi, we still have 3.5 more years of carbon credits, and we can then renew it for 5 more years. On an annual basis, we sell credits worth about $100,000, roundabout. And then we use those 100,000 to invest in the villages, to pay salaries, but also to improve salaries at Timisi Recycling. Yeah.
Cool. And another question says, can you give us some examples of storytelling and narratives? You talked about the importance of storytelling and narratives. What are some successes that you've seen there?
So in 2016, we made a video about, we raised like $40,000 in at Deos, and the Bali community came together and we did this cool fundraiser, and we invested that money in the village of Preranan to build one of these first TPS T3Rs. And a professional movie maker was in town at the time, and he made a 5-minute video. Basically, we interviewed all of the local village leaders and the women's group and some of the kids. And we really made sure that everyone was at the forefront of the story, and that the story was Balinese and Indonesian, and told in a way that relates to them and by them. And I've always been very cautious about, not being at the forefront of this, because there's much better storytellers than me. What that did was it inspired a lot of people to come and visit the facility, government and universities and other organizations. And at the time when there was a lot of momentum, the entire village got really excited about this story of, we own it, we're showing responsibility, we're absolutely providing solutions, we care. And you can just see that it starts to get past like a tipping point, and that people feel really inspired. And I think stories and narratives in that sense help people remember as well, and remember the reasons why they're doing it. Whereas if you look at mathematical models and physics, and generally science is very dry in itself, and people can't really emotionally relate so much to it. So even though you need the physics and the science in the background as the backbone, as the structure of your narrative, you need to come up with a tale and a story that people share and tell and get excited about. And that's what I mean with storytelling and narratives.
Amazing. I'm so inspired. So Chris also has another question. Chris, do you want to unmute yourself, or you want me to read it for you?
No, I can unmute.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah, hey, Nino. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for continuing to do all the great work you're doing through this heat. I'm impressed by people that can do what you do in this, in all the heat and humidity. So it's we've been having a little discussion with people like Maurizio and Chetan and Noan, who you know, about this discussion between carbon offsetting and carbon insetting, right? And actually, I had not even heard the term of insetting until this week. And then I went and Googled it, and the term has been around for a long time, but there's no money in insetting. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is why we don't hear about it, right? But offsetting. But I'm just curious if you had an opinion or a view on insetting, or if you had actually heard about it, and sort of the role that it plays.
What is insetting? If you could just
Oh, that's so. I mean, so offsetting is where a company looks to an external resource to be offsetting the carbon that they are producing. Like it pays the
Mm-hmm.
company to plant trees, it does carbon sequestering and things like that. And really, the whole concept of insetting is, let's say I have a big company, and what I do is I just build it within my own budget to be developing my own forest, developing things internally that I'm not doing. I'm not passing it off to someone else, right? Because the
Right.
moment we pass it off, now there's going to be a marginal loss of efficiency within the offsetting and things like that. And so, anyways, I I was just really surprised by this new term coming up, and it's been around for I've been seeing in usage for at least 7 years right now. And
Mm-hmm.
so, anyways, I was
I,
just
I think it's fantastic. We offer that to resort clients that we work with in my business, the stuff I do outside of waste, right? We help develop resorts in an environmental friendly way and destinations. So we design them, for example, internal programs. It can be with mangroves because they're located closely to mangroves, or they can be doing forests on their hill, or they can be looking at the building materials that they're using and being very cautious that the concrete and steel have a high carbon footprint and that they need to do more if they use those choices. But we create a framework for them to make decisions. And I guess that's in setting, as you want to call it. And they can totally control this on an internal basis. And there's a lot of people asking for that, not even interested in the financial benefit of offsetting, but they just want to do the right thing. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Offsetting, on the other hand, is more for work in development where we're looking at um, things like waste management, where there's not a lot of money in the system, and the guy it's a poor dog. The government is not paying anything for it. The people don't want to pay anything for it. So a carbon offset helps to bring more money into the system, and we can sell it to Switzerland, and they then buy that when they fly on a plane, right? And they feel better about it. The idea behind the offsets was always that carbon is a global phenomenon. It's everywhere, but it's much cheaper to save and store carbon in countries like Indonesia than it is in Switzerland. So to save 1 ton of carbon in Switzerland might cost $500, but in Indonesia it costs 20. So the idea was always like, okay, let's do more carbon projects in Indonesia, but then give the benefit to industry in Switzerland. And I think that it's not a perfect system, but we're going to have it. It's going to be around. Carbon offsets are going to be around, and they're available to many projects. And I would definitely advise anyone that wants to work in environmental projects to check if they are available for your project. It takes about 1 year to get them through, to get them, moving. And then every year you get extra additional revenue, which you can pay salaries with and you can do stuff with. If we didn't have the carbon credits, we wouldn't be, those $100,000 go a long way for us. Like there's over 40 people getting paid from that money. And it's not a lot, but it helps,
That's great. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nino. And it's Luke Jensen has another question here. It is possible to do single house systems. How small can they get? Is a village-wide size the optimal size?
Houses should have a compost using chicken mesh, or you have a biopori, which is a tube that goes in the ground where you can put your food waste in, or you have a vermicompost. Those are the three best options that we put forward. And we're very cautious that the villagers can build them themselves, that they can go to the local hardware store in their village, that they can build it from stuff that they can get in their village. There's no point in, trying to sell something that's made in China or Surabaya or comes from Germany. So the small system at the household level should be one of those three. What we found, though, is that many people don't want that. And they then rely on the village facility. And then when the village facility is over capacity, it goes to the central facility. So like I explained before, it's really about creating intervention points. And they're kind of like, trying to stop the flow of waste. Each intervention point helps, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Why do you think they don't want it?
Well, it's hygiene reasons. Maybe they don't have enough space, or they're living on their compound with 8 people, and 4 people generally are way too lazy and don't want to do it. The mom is fussed that they're not following the rules, and it depends. And can't make everyone have it, unfortunately. But I think as more and more people get accustomed to it, more and more people will use it. Yeah.
So the carbon credit thing that happens at the last of the intervention points at Temesi, right? Is there any concept of bringing it down to the village level intervention point, that somehow that part could be incentivized?
I want to, but to do that requires a year of work and a lot of paperwork and audits, and we have to fly in people and verifiers, and it's quite expensive. I think we're looking at anything between $30,000 to $40,000 to change what's called a project design document, and the document outlines the rules. So the way it's going right now is fine, and I'm just leaving it alone because we have a lot of other things that we need to deal with. But I think it's a great question.
Fair enough. Thank you for the answer.
Yeah.
And there are some other questions in the chat here. I guess how are local communities incentivized at village level to start a project and to keep it going long term? And so what are because you talked about the initial interest in your projects in 2016. Where did that go, and how do you keep it
going? So in 2016, there were no incentives for the villages to do this. And we developed a letter with a PDF. And at the time, we were working closely with Bye Bye Plastic Bags and doing also a lot of government work. And because we had all of the government contacts, I would literally at nighttime send them these PDFs and these letters to their emails, to their WhatsApps. I would just blast them and, invite, come see the facility. And we lobbied for more money from the government and governor's regulation to enforce separation. So now in 2019, we have the governor's regulation. Separation is to be enforced at a household level, and the government has committed about $6 million for all of Bali to build village facilities. Now, the village facilities can get up to 500 million rupiah, which is about $30,000 to $40,000 for building a facility like this. So when we go to the villages now, they've heard of the regulation, they've heard of the past facilities, they understand that they're going to get money and the costs are going to get covered for their facility. So those are the initial incentives. And then we show that if the facility is run well, and if the desa, if the community is willing to pay between, around 20,000 for collection, which is absolutely okay. It's the price of a pack of cigarettes, and everyone can afford it and should afford it. But if there's a willingness to pay a collection fee, then it becomes profitable. And then the revenue really starts to add up to a point where you can pay 8 to 10 salaries. You can maintain the machines, you can fix the equipment, you actually have enough in the system to keep it going. Without the collection fee, we found a way where the central government will give the village government money, and then they give that to the facility, which is on an annual basis, is not ideal, but it helps. And the truth of the matter is that these facilities cost money to operate, and they need that fuel. Yeah.
So have you had success in getting people to shift? Like, I'm aware. My wife is Balinese, and I live in a Balinese compound. And one of the things that I see is, talking about the neighbors, like, hey, what are they doing? And if you could get her, like, they're just burning their trash. Why don't they should pay tipping fees. They should pay for the collection fee. Like, is that a social thing? I actually, in the time that I've been in this compound, we've gone from managing trash on our own, which would mean burning it in the back, to paying a tipping fee so that somebody comes and gets it. How often do they come get it? Every 3 days? Every 3. What's that? 60 to 100 thou a month, and they come every 3 days to pick up like 30 people's trash. So that's changed here, but I don't know if that's changed everywhere else. Do you notice some kind of a change at the?
Absolutely. At the last 5 years, this is happening. This is exactly what's happening. And I'm the proponent. I'm saying raise the fees up, but it has to be transparent. And people have to see that it's arriving in the right places. But generally, the waste management system is completely underfunded. It is such a poor industry. And the past, it's been the invisibles, the outcasts, the untouchables, that do this work. And it's everyone's responsibility. So it's changing. Absolutely. It's changing. And for the better, I hope within the next 5 to 10 years that we've finally solved this problem.
Wow.
Well, we had a group of students a few weeks ago. We had a group of students that visited the facility, and some of those students are listening here. And I just wonder if any of you students, do you have any thoughts or comments on what you saw that day, or what you remember, what impression you had from actually seeing that facility, because it is something that most people don't see. And what was it like for you students to see it? Should I call on someone? What about Kaya and CL? Did you what your general thoughts were upon seeing the facility? What did it make you think about? And maybe, I don't know. Can anybody hear me? Am I just speaking to the?
Come on, I know one of you students.
Guzde and Rumi. I'm gonna call out to you guys, Rumi and Guzde.
Wasn't there.
Tell us.
It was crazy compared to what I thought it was like actually going to be to what it actually was. Because in my head, I was like, oh, there's trash there, but it can't be that bad, right? And then you get there and it's like, you can see a small pile and I'm like, oh, that's pretty bad, but it's like, yeah. And then I walked to the side and that pile that I saw was just the tip, and it was like 60 feet down into a gorge. And I was just like, oh, okay.
We have 8 of those.
That it was. And that was really eye-opening. It's one thing to see a picture of it, but it's another thing to see how big, like, an excavator is compared to the amount of trash there is. And the stories that we heard about like people like just getting really fatally hurt over picking up the trash outside. Like, I don't know, there's some really horrible stories and stuff. So
yeah, I'm glad you guys could experience it. It's something that changed me. And I had to do research, and I had to go sit in there with the Pumalung and the trash pickers for hours. And I mean, it rattled me. Like, I always say that I would love for the politicians that come on these huge meetings here and make all these promises and pledges. They should have their meetings in the dump. That would be cool. That would probably make some real change. But yeah, it's great you guys experienced it. And it doesn't need to be that way. I think that's really the bottom line here. Yeah.
And Nino, how do you see? So you said that you have this educational facility, and Green School could support with some of that. After this presentation, can you explore a little bit more on ways that we could be supporting your project?
I think it would be a great starting point if we did the educational center together, and it's a nice, fun project. Which will allow us to engage in discussions and talks, and to talk about the complexity of the problem and the solutions. And we can think about how we want to design an educational experience. So we used to have, 3-4 local schools coming once a week. Every other day there would be schools coming. And they would have a look at the dump. They would go into the educational center. And I think it's a great starting point. I think it's something that parents and students alike can do. And it would build a relationship. I think that, we would start building a partnership. And then, sure, we could do a fundraiser to fund and finance some more village facilities, or we can think of other things, how to engage and collaborate. But the way I'm looking at this, I'd really like a long-term partnership. And I'd love to get you guys involved and more local schools involved. And I'm not really sure how, but I think that it's absolutely necessary. And I think this educational first project together would be a great starting point.
Yeah, amazing. And then what are some of the other struggles that you face into this journey? I mean, I can see many, and it's absolutely amazing, all the work that you're doing. And I mean, you were talking about all the separation and measuring and understanding what is the nature of each type of waste, and what happens and what doesn't happen in all these breaking points, So what are the challenges that you face on behavior level, let's say? So, for example, we talked briefly about people paying a fee, and that being a culture that needs to shift. What are other culture shifts that we are facing as a society that will support the achieving the goal of having more the 90% recyclable, as you suggested, as a dream goal?
So the setting a big goal that is achievable is kind of like you kind of create the idea of, okay, where do we need to go? And then getting there really takes repetition, and it's training. It's like training a muscle, or doing yoga, or, going swimming, or learning surfing. It's about repetition. So building the village facilities, we have teams that do that repetition in the village. And because they're being paid, and, they start to really enjoy their work and they like what they're doing, and it's not dirty anymore, and the facilities are clean, and this is an absolutely okay job. They've got a tablet and have a computer, and they're doing measurements, and people are visiting them and appreciating them. So on the village level, that repetition, every village, it just needs to keep happening and happening and happening. But we have teams that do that, and we see that we want to empower women's groups and local trainers and incentivize them on performance as well, right? If the villages are doing really well, and if the facilities are doing well, we want to incentivize women's groups as well as local trainers. So right now we have 4 that are doing that work, and we've hired another group of women, but we want to expand that into the future. And I see that as the best way to continue this repetition. So as we're building more and more facilities, we can at some point also announce maybe games and compare the facilities to each other, and we can do sports events, depending on like, how do you want to celebrate the success, and how do you want to celebrate these achievements? But really, like, what it is continuous repetition. So it's all very challenging, Carol, but in the end, I think we see the progress, and it's something that really works well in Bali is to go with the flow. And to not really get stuck on resistance. And there is so much resistance in the villages, and there's so much resistance from the government and people, but we just keep going, and you just keep moving. And that's the only way we're going to solve this. And I'd love to engage with you guys in a long-term partnership. Like, I can't give you tangible things because we don't have that much time to be there with you. That's the thing, right? We can't hold your hand and be like, okay, this is what you're going to do. I think like if we can find some small project that we can do together, like an education center, I think it's clear, it's tangible. We can start solving it together. We can look at, what needs. You guys can nominate a few people that are going to be responsible for it. And that way, I think that, we'll make progress together. I'm afraid if I give too many things and too many options, it's just going to not go anywhere. And I'm going to be responsible for picking up the pieces or being there and guiding people. And I can't do that. We simply have too much going on. And yeah, it's like, okay, so I want to find a way that we can collaborate on something that's going to actually, that we can celebrate. And I think this education center is ideal, really. Yeah.
We're very interested in that, Sean. And so me and you will be in touch in Aga on how we can get our Greenworks class involved in a more long-term setting. Now, the whole reason that we've had recent success is just because of a long-term relationship between me and Aga. Like, just me staying in touch with Aga. I did not know that he was there, and so and Aga was a former employee of Green School. If any, for people who don't know, it was a connection point recently for us, and so it was awesome to make that reconnection. And so I hope that we can lay out kind of a long-term understanding of each other and try to figure out how to help and support this program from our abilities.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great, Driver. And I think we can also involve some parents. There are so many people wanting to help in the parent community as well. And Chris, I don't know if you raise your hand, but I'll read your question, Chris. In terms of partnerships, can there be a start with Kembali at Green School, or is that already happening? Do you have already any type of partnership with Kembali at this stage, Nino, or not yet?
No, we could buy everything from you that we can sell at the recycling market. That could be a straight first, partnership where we could, every time Kembali fills up, send it to the central plant.
Well, Kambali has agreements with, I think, Echo Bali or something like that, and also it's in Badin Regency. So as far as the actual trash flow of Tennessee, it's not within that regional structure. Although you do have one in Prairie, you said.
They're gonna close Suwon. So the main dump that is at Turtle Island, Sarangan, maybe some people know. That is getting closed. That huge dump, and we are not sure what's going to happen because, and it's very likely that we're going to see an increase of 100, 200, maybe even 300 trucks additional waste coming to the landfill in Gianyar because Suwon will close.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah, Nino, not long ago, there was a change of regulation that I think that the landfill was already coming to full capacity. So the Banjars were required, the diesels were required to deal with their own waste. And I remember like 2 years ago that the amount of trash burning, it went crazy and the air quality just became like a massive issue here. So do you think that has a potential to come back? So that's what because it has become better after the pandemic,
I have a feeling that we're not ready to close Suwon, and Suwon has 600, 800 trucks a day going there. We're not ready for that to close. But it is so over capacity. And Gianyar is over capacity and Tabanan is over capacity. So we need more infrastructure. But like we're talking about, expenses in the realm of $10 to $15 million per kabupaten per landfill facility. Like if we want proper infrastructure that's serving 600,000 people. And there's still a big argument about who should pay for that and how is it going to operate, and people pointing fingers at each other and not wanting to be responsible. So we're just going to chug away at the small thing that we're doing in Gianyar, and continue to show that it's possible, and hopefully other kabupatens will follow. But it's going to continue to be an eyesore, an issue. There's going to continue to be trash burning. There's going to continue to be plastic in the rivers. It's not going to happen overnight. No. So it's just the reality of it, guys. The issue is too big. And Bali is a city. We're at 5 million people. If we count Javanese, we're probably at around 6 million on the island. And then tourists here, we're getting closer to having 7 million on the island. And it's a lot of people. Everyone produces trash, every single person, every day. So it's like a never ending wave.
And what are the roles for you of policy changes? How can the change of policies also support that? For example, no recyclable packaging being banned, and people companies cannot produce using this type of materials, and this type of policies that are more direct to reduction of waste materials.
I think that's a great point, and I would have loved to have seen a lot more traction. We got really far when Bye Bye Plastic Bags was making so much noise, and Tiza, the environmental lawyer in Jakarta, started her case, and made me really hopeful around 2015, 16, 17. During that period, so the Ministry of Trade and the Ministry of Finance are the two Indonesian ministries that have the authority to change packaging. They can literally write a code which is called a Standard National Indonesia, which outlines how thick the packaging is, how big, how much excessive plastic there can be, what type of plastic it can be. And they can enforce that law onto the producers and the factories and have them change their machines, change the way that they're producing packaging. And it's absolutely possible. The problem is that industry pushes back very hard on these changes. And they argue that they have to buy new factories, new manufacturing processes, that the consumers don't want it. And they're really very close with the political landscape in Indonesia. And so the producers, the politicians, and the ministry are doing their thing. And they're not listening to the people. They continue to make up excuses, and we're not seeing progress. So the amount of plastic in the environment and that is being produced has been increasing year after year after year. And I don't have any stats right now to show you, but at some point I'll send something. I have to put something together, but just been looking at it. We are seeing a continuous increase in plastic production. So I don't think that's going to change soon either. And I think we're looking at 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20-year windows on this kind of stuff. And there needs to be way more pressure. Way more. So what somehow magically happened with when the whole bye-bye plastic bags movement was going off, everyone was joining in, and man, we were making noise. That was some really cool stuff that was going on. Like, there's a lot of energy, a lot of pressure, a lot of publicity, and then it's like we had them in the spot and we could have changed the laws, but they wiggled free. And what they are intelligently doing, the plastic producers and the politicians, is they are pointing at waste management. So they keep making the discussion about waste management and saying it's the end of the pipe. It's the consumers that are responsible. They're the ones that we need to, we just need to fix this and everything will be solved. But they deliberately don't want to talk about the standards. They don't want to talk about the code. They don't want to talk about the Ministry of Trade and the Ministry of Finance. And it's never part of the narrative. So it's intentionally done that way, that they publicly don't want to speak about these things. It's to misdirect the attention at waste management. But waste management is not going to solve the plastic problem, guys. Like, plastic barriers is not going to solve the plastic problem, guys. It's not, right? We literally have to stop producing it. And there needs to be way more pressure. So that's my take on it. And yeah, it's waste management is there to produce compost, to recycle metals, recycle papers, recycle glass, and also recycle plastics, the ones that we can. We're not there to save the ocean. It's like this. It just doesn't make sense. It's they have to stop producing plastic if we want to save the ocean, and they have to get serious about it. They have to really start answering some tough questions, and people have to start asking those questions again. And
Yeah, it's really nice that we have a lot of students here. So maybe few of you guys can feel inspired to, help to bring, because the student voices it's so powerful when we have these young adults, putting their voice out there and, calling attention of the world of the problem, and we are in such a perfect setup of so many students that are aware of the problem and are willing to create the change. And I'm sure that all the students from Pack Driver class, are thinking about that. And that's that's something for us to work with. Like, let's make some noise as a community. We should
Absolutely.
not stop, and we should keep, the legacy that Melati and Isabel did with Bye Bye Plastic Bag and pressuring the government. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was really, really good conversation. Chris just suggested if Green School hold a conference just on plastic, we can talk about that. Let's keep connected, let's keep the conversation. I think we should be collaborating. We all know that we only can get to a solution if institutions collaborate and we get together. Nobody's going to solve this problem by itself, and I think that will be amazing if we can foster a collaboration with you, with students, with parents, with our community, and be together into this journey that is said is not easy, but it's essential. And thank everybody for being here today. Thank you.